Exclusive contract from Feilu Novel Network Novel. Tomb robbery. Me and Huo Xiuxiu share the same body. Zhang Ye travels through the world of tomb raids and shares the same body with Huo Xiuxiu. By awakening the separation system and obtaining shock points, you can acquire countless skills and items. I am Huo Xiuxiu, Miss Huo from the Huo family. One day, Mr. Zhang Ye appeared inexplicably and shared the same body with me. Since then, my life has undergone earth-shattering changes. And the people around me are becoming increasingly surprised. Huo Xiangu. Good granddaughter, you are better than me. I am very confident that the Huo family has entrusted you with it. Huo Youxue. It's impossible. How could you become so powerful? Wuxie and Jieyuchen. This is still our childhood sweetheart, isn't it too abnormal? Fatty guy. Fatty guy, I can't even compare to a woman, NemaAnning. Did a woman take advantage of me? When Zhang Ye obtained enough shock points to finally separate her body from Huo Xiuxiu, she was shocked to find I seem to have been knocked down by somethingFeilu Novel Network reminds you that this novel and its characters are purely fictional. If there are any similarities, they are purely coincidental and should not be imitated. I traveled through time and became a woman. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Kyoto, Huo family. In the early morning. Zhang Ye murmured, his mind still drowsy. Flipped over and wanted to continue sleeping for a while. But the situation around him vaguely made him feel something was wrong. Both the sheets and bedding have a comfort that has never been experienced before. Not right. When will it be my own bed has become so sophisticated? The most crucial thing is in the air. If hidden, it still emits a fragrance unique to young girls. Where's the femininity from? Zhang Ye remembers clearly that he didn't go surfing last night. With doubts. He slowly opened his eyes. The morning light is somewhat soft, in a semi-bright and semi-dark state. Light shines through the shattered glass window. The decorations in the room can be vaguely seen. Look at this. Zhang Ye was stunned. Because the room in front of him was too unfamiliar. Or rather, it's a bit too luxurious. At first glance, all you see are antique-style sandalwood furniture. Wardrobes, dressing tables, and even tables and chairs. Everything in the room is filled with a noble pattern. Even the ones covering the body are those high-end silk quilts. Hiss, where am I? Zhang Ye feels a bit confused. This is obviously not my own room. Did you drink too much last night and run away to the beautiful woman's house? But he remembers clearly that he didn't drink last night. Thinking hard about everything from last night. Zhang Ye still has no clue. Forget it. First, let's take a look around and see what the situation is. Think about it this way. Zhang Ye lifted the blanket directly. There is only a pair of pink girl's slippers on the carpet. I didn't think so much either. Zhang Ye directly put his foot in. The softness immediately hit. However, Zhang Ye was completely stunned. Because he clearly remembers that his foot is size 43. At this moment, wearing these noticeably smaller women's shoes, they are actually quite suitable. What's going on? Zhang Ye instinctively lowered his head. But I found that my line of sight was blocked by two high bumps. This is Zhang Ye's whole body froze. What did he see? When did my place become so big? By a stroke of fate. Zhang Ye reached out and pinched it a little. Soft and bouncing hiss, it's actually true. How could this be possible? Zhang Ye is a bit hard to believe. Almost subconsciously, he reached out and pulled down. And then the whole person petrified empty. Surprisingly, it's empty. Damn it. Labor management just took a nap. How come they immediately change their personality when they wake up? Zhang Ye was inexplicably shocked. He quickly walked towards the floor mirror not far away. The further forward, Zhang Ye's heart became more uneasy. Firstly, what appears in the mirror is a pair of delicate and beautiful feet. Pure white as jade. Up, it's those sexy long legs. Keep moving your gaze upwards. From the willow waist that is tightly grasped to the astonishing scale. Zhang Ye took a deep breath and finally looked up at his own face. Look at this. He suddenly froze. Black straight long hair. A small nose. Sexy red lips. The woman in the mirror is really stunning. At first glance, it appears to be a delicate and pure person. But there is also a faint hint of charm. Especially those pair of watery big eyes are even more captivating. However, faced with such a peerless beauty in the world. At this moment, Zhang Ye felt a hint of shock and astonishment. How could it be? Did I actually become a woman? How could his dignified 7-foot man cross over a woman? For a while, Zhang Ye finds it difficult to accept. Not right. This is a dream. This must be a dream. Subconsciously, Zhang Ye slapped himself. There was a crisp bang. Pain. It hurts a lot. The pain is severe. This is not a dream. Feeling the burning pain on his face, Zhang Ye finally gave up. It seems that he really wore it and met a girl. It hurts so much. At this moment, a pleasant female voice came over. Zhang Ye saw himself in the mirror. His mouth seemed to be moving. This scene looked so eerie. What's wrong with me? How could I walk to the mirror even though I'm sleeping soundly? Is it a sleepwalk? The sound continued to ring. The mouth is opening and closing. This time, Zhang Ye saw it very clearly. It is indeed oneself speaking. That is to say, is this woman's original soul still there? It seems that one can also control this body. Just as Zhang Ye was about to say hello to this girl. But suddenly a mechanical reminder sound rang out in my mind. Ding, detected the current situation of the host. Soul body, residing in Huo Xiuxiu's body. Tomb robbing separation system generating. Completed. The host is currently unable to separate Huo Xiuxiu's body. The shock value needs to reach 100,000 to completely separate Huo Xiuxiu's body. Shockwave value acquisition medium. Huo Xiuxiu, current shock value 0. As the sound of the system kept ringing, Zhang Ye became increasingly shocked. Tomb robbing separation system. Huo Xiuxiu. Is it difficult? Did he travel to Huo Xiuxiu, who was in the world of tomb raiding? This Nema, isn't it too outrageous? Just as Zhang Ye was pondering. The self in the mirror, to be precise, is Huo Xiuxiu. Whispering to himself again. It's really strange, how could I sleepwalk so well? Huo Xiuxiu caressed her cheeks, feeling very puzzled. My face hurts so much, it seems like I'm a bit tough from sleepwalking. Starting from now, be so cruel to yourself. Hear this. Zhang Ye suddenly had a strange expression on his face. He was indeed a bit anxious just now. I also fought harder. Is this considered hitting oneself? Forget it, it seems like this time has been too exhausting. I'll just sleep a little longer. Talking to oneself. Huo Xiuxiu returned to bed, covered herself with a blanket, and fell asleep beautifully. And Zhang Ye. After a smile and guana, he also shifted his attention back to the system panel. 2. I crave my own body. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Tomb robbing separation system. By obtaining enough shock points, one can separate from Huo Xiuxiu and have their own body. But how do you get shock points? Zhang Ye is quite self-aware. Although he is a traveler, he is essentially an ordinary person. Even worse than Huo Xiuxiu in all aspects of abilities. After all, she is a lady from a wealthy family and has been nurtured with various high-quality resources since childhood. Zhang Ye can't compare at all. Damn it, in this way, it seems like there is no way to obtain shock points at this moment. The system's prompt sound sounded in time. Ding, The beginner gift package has been received. Do you want to accept it? Is it a beginner's gift package? Zhang Ye's eyes lit up and he quickly confirmed receipt. Next second, ding, congratulations to the host for obtaining the Phoenix bloodline. Phoenix bloodline. Upon hearing this, Zhang Ye couldn't help but feel a sense of joy in his heart. Bloodline is such a thing that you can't be too top-notch. Not only can it improve one's physical fitness, but it also has various incredible special abilities. The most typical one is the little brother's Qilin bloodline. Not only does it make the young man's combat power far exceed that of ordinary people, but it can also ward off evil spirits and insects. I just don't know what the function of this Phoenix bloodline is. In thought, the mechanical prompt sound of the system also rang out again. Ding, does it merge with the Phoenix bloodline? Zhang Ye did not immediately agree, but first raised a question. System, is the bloodline ability I have obtained synchronized with Huo Xiuxiu? This is what Zhang Ye is currently concerned about. Currently, he shares the same body with Huo Xiuxiu. If one gains abilities from the system, Huo Xiuxiu also gains them. That's a bit of a migrant worker. Although this woman is very beautiful and feminine. For Huo Xiuxiu, Zhang Ye was also quite appreciative when he saw stolen pens before. But one size fits all. But Zhang Ye doesn't like to work for others in vain at all. And if we separate in the future and the abilities we acquire cannot be brought out, isn't that a loss of life? The system also responded thoughtfully to Zhang Ye's concerns. Ding, please rest assured that the host's bloodline, skills, and attributes are all bound to themselves. However, due to the fact that the host now shares the body with Huo Xiuxiu, the latter may also be slightly affected. Does binding to oneself in all aspects have only one impact on Huo Xiuxiu? Zhang Ye knows the meaning of the system. Because I share my body with Huo Xiuxiu. So if he uses his own abilities, he uses Huo Xiuxiu's body. Twice at a time is not much. But over time it will subtly bring about changes to this body. Zhang Ye did not continue to dwell on this matter. Consider it as a period of shared body, give Huo Xiuxiu some interest and compensation. After all, I have to pay rent for renting a house these days. Ding, does it merge with the Phoenix bloodline? The mechanical prompt sound of the system came again. This time, Zhang Ye never hesitated again. Fusion. As soon as the words fell, Zhang Ye felt a sudden surge of hot energy in his heart. Pop it. Pop it. Pop it. Accompanied by the powerful beating of the heart, fresh blood was pumped out, and a strange energy surged throughout the body. In just an instant, Zhang Ye felt like his limbs were soaking in hot spring water. This spring water seems to be a bit hot. Extreme heat. The body temperature is rapidly rising. Visible to the naked eye. Huo Xiuxiu's body also began to sweat profusely. How could it suddenly be so hot? In a daze, Huo Xiuxiu lifted the blanket and took off her coat. Gulu, it seems that this is what the system calls a minor impact. Zhang Ye suddenly felt a little dry mouth and tongue. I didn't feel anything before. Now it is known that it was after sharing the body with Huo Xiuxiu. Zhang Ye's feeling inexplicably became charming. Grandma tease. Can I consider myself craving my own body? Hiss, what a pervert. Ding, is the sensory blocking function enabled? The sound of the system suddenly rang out. Get lost, Zhang Ye refused without even thinking about it. Just kidding. If it's blocked, how can you become familiar with this body? After all, we will use this body to fight in the future. As for this complex feeling of torture, let yourself silently endure it alone. Zhang Ye enjoys cough, in the midst of torment. The fusion of Phoenix bloodline also seems to be coming to an end. And at this moment, right behind Huo Xiuxiu, from top to bottom, bit by bit, the Phoenix tattoo began to appear. Grand and majestic. The deterrent power is full. Fingers ran over Huo Xiuxiu's rough waist. Although I can't see that phoenix tattoo. But Zhang Ye could still feel that it was indeed on his back. I don't know how this phoenix bloodline compares to my little brother's Kirin bloodline. My mind twitched. Suddenly, the system panel appeared in front of me. Host. Zhang Ye power. 300 physical strength. 300 agility. 300 note. Normal adult 3D attributes are all 100 bloodline. Phoenix bloodline skills. Blood tattoo active, super recovery, passive, can recover non-fatal injuries, but requires a lot of energy, non-invading poisons, passive, weapon. None. Blood tattoo. Super recovery. 100 poisons do not invade. After reading the introduction, Rao remained calm as Zhang Ye, and at this moment, his small heart was pounding uncontrollably. The phoenix blood is too awesome. Surprisingly, it brought him 3 abilities at once. Especially the super recovery, it can be called a miracle. Phoenix Nirvana, immortal and never extinguished. Although this phoenix bloodline is not to this extent. But it is also extremely unfavorable. As long as it is not fatally injured, it can recover as before. This ability is simply a bug-like existence. Tomb flipping and other activities often suffer damage. With super recovery, these are not issues. TSK it's like making a fortune. Moreover, the other 2 abilities are equally good. Phoenix Tattoo. After use, it can temporarily improve various attributes of the body and enhance combat power. 100 poisons do not invade. With this, Zhongzi can be upright. Not to mention the poisonous gas and miasma, they are all younger brothers. However, I don't know if the Phoenix Blood's invincibility is the same as the little brother's Kirin Blood, which can ward off evil spirits and insects. And that's super recovery. What kind of recovery method is it? Zhang Ye has no intention of self-harm. It seems that everything can only be gradually understood after turning back and practicing. Inexplicably, Zhang Ye began to have some small expectations. 3. Huo Xiuxiu's obsession. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Dong dong dong, 7 o'clock in the morning. Outside Huo Xiuxiu's boudoir, there was a knocking on the door. Miss, it's time to get up and have breakfast. Got it. I heard someone knocking on the door outside. Zhang Ye instinctively replied. But he quickly realized that he had already traveled. Not good. Huo Xiuxiu Zhang Ye quickly looked at himself. At this moment, Huo Xiuxiu had already been awakened. She opened her eyes in a daze. My gaze was full of confusion and confusion. What happened to me just now? Did I talk in my sleep again? It seems that I have been really tired lately because of investigating my aunt's situation. Auntie. Is it Huo Ling? Zhang Yi seemed lost in thought. He suddenly thought of something. More than a decade ago, Huo Xiuxiu's aunt, also known as Huo Ling, went missing unexpectedly. At that time, the entire Huo family was shocked. You should know that this is not a small matter. Who is Huo Ling? The daughter of the Huo family. Huo Xiangu's most beloved daughter was also the potential successor of the Huo family at that time. The result is inexplicable, the whole person is gone. Who dares to believe this? Mrs. Huo was furious at the time and almost exhausted all the strength of the Huo family to send people to search. But after searching for so many years, not to mention Huo Ling's body, there is no news about her at all. As if the world has truly evaporated. Gradually, this became a knot in Huo Xiangu's heart. And Huo Xiuxiu has always kept it in mind. I have never given up searching in these years. You are also a hard-working person. Zhang Yi sighed lightly in his heart. He knows the whereabouts of Huo Ling. If nothing unexpected happens, the other party is currently in the Golmud Sanatorium. But the original cuteness has turned into a terrifying forbidden monster. Should I tell Huo Xiuxiu about this in order to gain their favor? After some thought, Zhang Ye decided to observe the situation first before proceeding. At least, we need to come up with an appropriate solution now. Let's officially meet Huo Xiuxiu. During Zhang Ye's contemplation, Huo Xiuxiu had already stood up. She lifted the white silk quilt from her body. Then put on your shoes and walk into the cloakroom. There is a pile of luxurious clothes neatly arranged. Various fashionable hats, high heels, and jewelry. More of them are Cheongsam. Huo Xiuxiu simply chose a snow-colored dress. The style is very simple. There is only a delicate lotus embroidered on it. Zhang Ye can see clearly. This thing is Su embroidery, it's incredibly expensive. Next. It's just quite charming. Huo Xiuxiu took off her pajamas. I don't know if all girls have this habit. That's because I don't like to wear bras while sleeping. But Zhang Ye could see clearly. Huo Xiuxiu is really not wearing it. I have a great figure. The clothes are also very suitable. But I always feel like something strange. Huo Xiuxiu touched her suddenly flushed cheeks, feeling somewhat puzzled. What's wrong with myself? It seems like. Since the early morning, I have been feeling a bit confused. I used to wake up inexplicably and dreamwalk before. Is it really because of my aunt's situation that I feel a bit exhausted? During contemplation, the voice of the maid came from outside the door. Miss, how are you? The old lady is already waiting. Here we go. Huo Xiuxiu quickly pushed open the door and walked out. The courtyard of the Huo family is really big. Even in places like Kyoto where every inch of land is precious. 7 detours and 8 detours along the way. Huo Xiuxiu just arrived at a side hall in the inner courtyard. There is already an old lady with silver hair sitting inside. The old lady looks very old. In fact, the skin is extremely well maintained. Temperament goes without saying. This should be the legendary Huo Xiangu. Zhang Ye pondered in his heart. On either side of Huo Xiangu, there were 2 rows of young people, of varying ages. But all of them are women. Zhang Ye was not surprised at all about this. Because the Huo family has always been dominated by women, while men's status is relatively low. Good morning, Grandma. Huo Xiuxiu playfully asked and before sitting down to eat. Huo Xiangu didn't speak. His gaze only gave a faint glance at his granddaughter. Then he continued to slowly drink the bird's nest congee in the exquisite porcelain bowl. Eating without words, sleeping without words. That's the way of raising a big family, right? Zhang Ye sighed in his heart. Soon, breakfast time came to an end. The younger generations continued to bow and leave. And Huo Xiuxiu had almost finished eating. Grandma, I'm full now. After finishing the last bit of bird's nest congee in the bowl, she wiped her mouth and was about to get up and leave as usual, but at this moment, Huo Xiangu's faint voice suddenly sounded. Sit down. Upon hearing this, Huo Xiuxiu paused and then looked up in confusion. What's wrong, Grandma? Huo Xiangu did not answer immediately, but picked up the celadon tea cup on the table and gently rinsed her mouth. Then, speaking calmly and slowly. The butler said, did the lights in your room light up again in the middle of last night? Didn't sleep well. Grandma. Huo Xiuxiu hesitated to speak. She doesn't know how to speak. I don't know why. Her grandmother, Huo Xiangu, has always been very averse to her investigating her aunt's affairs. So, in recent years, she has been secretly investigating on her own. Once this matter falls through with my grandmother's personality, I definitely won't have the chance to investigate my aunt's affairs again in the future. How can we keep this matter a secret? In the midst of contemplation, Huo Xiuxiu's mind was rapidly thinking of countermeasures. Just Huo Xiangu has always been Huo Xiangu. Jiang is always old and spicy. There's no need for Huo Xiuxiu to speak up and see her granddaughter like this. Huo Xiangu already knew everything. No need to explain. In the future, you are not allowed to investigate your aunt's affairs again. Do you understand? No further investigation into my aunt's affairs. Upon hearing this, Huo Xiuxiu suddenly became somewhat anxious. Why? Yeah, why? Although there has been no news about Huo Ling in recent years, the entire Huo family has basically recognized one fact, which is, Huo Ling is already dead. Because if a person is still alive, how can they not go home for more than a decade? This is illogical. But even so, there is still someone in this Huo family who firmly believes that Huo Ling is still alive. This person is not only her, but also her grandmother. Since she went to great lengths to find someone back then, her grandmother, Huo Xiangu, although she appeared calm on the surface, she never sent anyone to find her again. But Huo Xiuxiu was clear that in private, her grandmother remained the same as her and never gave up searching. So Huo Xiuxiu doesn't understand now. Just like her, she still remembers her aunt. Looking for the same thing. Why never let her touch this matter at all? Grandma, why? Huo Xiuxiu asked with some reluctance. There's no reason. Huo Xiangu's expression was calm. She slowly put down the celadone tea cup in her hand and spoke lightly. This matter is settled like this. As a punishment, you are not allowed to take a step outside the Huo family gate for 3 days. You should reflect on yourself. When it gets tough, it even hits itself. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Huo Xiangu left directly with the help of the butler. The vast side hall left only Huo Xiuxiu alone, bewildered helplessness. Although she felt reluctant, there was nothing she could do. In the Huo family, no one dares or can go against Mrs. Huo's wishes. Although Huo Xiangu's words just now seemingly calm, there is no thunderous anger. In fact, I have made up my mind. If Huo Xiuxiu dares to violate so even if she is Huo Xiangu's granddaughter, she will still be severely punished. At the thought of this, Huo Xiuxiu's tears couldn't help but blush at this moment. A female voice suddenly sounded in the quiet side hall. I'm talking about women, are you crying and crying, useful? At the moment when this voice appeared, Huo Xiuxiu's whole body immediately froze. Because she realized that the sound was clearly coming from her own mouth. Huo Xiuxiu's beautiful eyes immediately widened, filled with disbelief. How could this be? Why is my mouth talking on its own? Is it difficult? I'm sleepwalking again. Almost subconsciously, Huo Xiuxiu raised her jade hand and patted her left face. Pop. The crisp sound of applause suddenly rang out, especially loud in this quiet side hall. Hiss. You're such a fierce woman. When you're tough, you'll even hit yourself. The familiar voice rang out again. It is still said from one's own mouth. The tone was still filled with silence. Now, Huo Xiuxiu was completely stunned. Because what happened in front of me was just too bizarre. In theory, it is impossible for a person's mouth to speak against their subjective will. Unless it's in a dream. But the burning sensation on her cheeks and palms clearly told her. I'm not dreaming. But why does my mouth speak on its own? Please, it's not that your mouth speaks on its own, it's that I'm using your mouth to speak. Seeing this situation, Zhang Ye had no choice but to appear and take the opportunity to tell Huo Xiuxiu the details of the matter bit by bit. Of course, he didn't mention a word about the system. At first, Huo Xiuxiu was quite shocked. I almost couldn't help but scream and scream. Fortunately, Zhang Ye covered his mouth with his hand in time and tried his best to dissuade him. Fortunately, Huo Xiuxiu is also quite knowledgeable and has a strong ability to accept. After spending quite a while, she finally realized. So, are you saying that due to certain uncontrollable factors, you will be sharing the same body with me for a period of time in the future? As you can see. Zhang Ye shrugged his shoulders. Of course. He doesn't have shoulders now, and he shrugs like Huo Xiuxiu. Hey, don't use my body casually, okay? It's very impolite. Huo Xiuxiu's mouth was full of energy. This feeling, how to say it, very strange. It's clearly my own body. The actions taken are completely unrelated to one's own wishes. Huo Xiuxiu's eyebrows furrowed slightly. I can't do anything about it. Do you think I want to be in your body? Zhang Ye reluctantly shrugged off. Damn it. This feeling is really strange. Huo Xiuxiu felt as if her body was malfunctioning. Sometimes this and sometimes that, it's extremely uncomfortable. What about this? Zhang Ye tried to communicate consciously with Huo Xiuxiu. It seems like it's getting better now. Huo Xiuxiu breathed a sigh of relief. Although someone is speaking in their own brain, it's a bit strange. But at least it's much better than talking to oneself. After such a commotion, her originally low mood due to her aunt's incident has now eased a lot. I don't have that much aversion towards Zhang Ye anymore. However, it's still very inconvenient to suddenly have an extra man in my body. After all, she is a girl. There is also a lot of personal privacy. As soon as she thought of this, Huo Xiuxiu felt even more overwhelmed. I want to ask, when can you get out of my body? Can you give a definite date? I cannot be certain about this either, but if you encounter anything in the future, try to let me do it. In that case, the faster you and I can separate. Zhang Ye truthfully told the truth. He has not yet obtained shock points. I don't know if this thing is easy to obtain. Is it like this? Huo Xiuxiu's tone was clearly a bit depressed and helpless. It seems that she will have to share her body with this man in the short term. Zhang Ye naturally understands the other person's thoughts. After all, she is a girl. And he's also a big old man. Anyone who encounters such a situation will feel uncomfortable. Sorry for causing you trouble. Zhang Ye sincerely apologized. After some thought, he added. Although I cannot leave your body immediately, but as compensation, I can tell your Aunt Huo Ling's whereabouts. What? My aunt's whereabouts? Huo Xiuxiu opened her mouth wide, her eyes filled with disbelief. Do you know where my Aunt Huo Ling is? Where is she? Take me to find her. Are you the head of the Zhang family? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Huo Xiuxiu spoke repeatedly, with a slightly excited tone. However, as she spoke, she immediately calmed down again. As the potential successor of the Huo family, her good qualities immediately led her to discover the loopholes in Zhang Ye's words. No. How could you, an outsider, know the whereabouts of my aunt? My Huo family has been searching for more than a decade without finding any news. Why do you know? Why? Just because I am a traveler. But of course, Zhang Ye didn't say it out loud. Instead, he let out a long sigh and pretended to speak mysteriously. All of this is a long story to say. But you only need to know one thing, which is. There's nothing I don't know about your Huo family, and even the entire tomb raiding world today. As soon as these words were spoken, Huo Xiuxiu's mind was immediately shaken. Not only do they have a clear understanding of everything about the Huo family, but even the entire tomb raiding world has no secrets in front of their opponents. What exactly is this person from? Huo Xiuxiu does not believe that the other party is lying. It's not necessary. Secondly, she suddenly realized a fact, which is. From before until now, she has not mentioned her aunt's name. But the other party spoke out by name and name. It can be seen from this that this person truly knows some of the secrets of the Huo family. So does this person really have a strong background? Who the hell are you? Huo Xiuxiu frowned slightly. Me. Zhang Ye chuckled lightly and then spoke. My surname is Zhang, you can. Last name Zhang. Before Zhang Ye could finish speaking, Huo Xiuxiu's thoughts were already spinning rapidly in her mind. This person's surname is Zhang. Is it possible that they are from the legendary Zhang family? The Zhang family, surnamed Zhang, can be said to be an extremely mysterious and legendary existence in the entire tomb raiding world. Huo Xiuxiu has heard her grandmother mention this surname more than once. Every mention was filled with awe, and even more so, it reminded her not to oppose the Zhang family. You know. Even Master Zhang, who used to be the head of the 9 gates, is just a branch of the Zhang family. Not to mention the more mysterious Zhang family leader in legend. And according to her grandmother, every generation of contemporary clan leaders in the Zhang family has a common name, which is Zhang Qiling. Zhang Qiling. At the thought of this name, Huo Xiuxiu's mind suddenly paused. She suddenly realized something crucial, which was: the other party's surname is Zhang. Still familiar with the secrets of the entire tomb raiding world, even the secrets of the Huo family are well known. Such a person, perhaps Huo Xiuxiu suddenly had a thought in her heart and then blurted out. Are you the rising spirit of the Zhang family? The Zhang family is rising. Zhang Qiling. Upon hearing this name, Zhang Ye was stunned. Then I couldn't help but cry and laugh. What exactly is this woman thinking in her mind? He only mentioned one surname, and the other person inexplicably associated it with Zhang Qiling. This Nema, who dares to believe it? In silence, Zhang Ye was about to speak up and explain, but at this moment, a soft smile from the woman came from outside the side hall. Cluck cluck. What kind of blow has my sister suffered? She's talking to herself alone here. Accompanied by words comes a graceful figure, gauzy face, willow leaf eyebrows, exquisite nose and snow-white skin. A blue qipao showcases a graceful figure to the fullest. Show off the feminine flavor to the fullest. The only downside is that the lips are a bit thin. From a facial perspective, this doesn't seem like a easy to get along with woman. At the moment of seeing the arrival, Huo Xiuxiu also frowned slightly. What are you doing here? He. Younger sister, don't you be so divided. We're all from our own family. Of course, I'm here to care about you, my sister. Women turn a blind eye to Huo Xiuxiu's indifferent attitude. Instead, he approached with a smile on his lips. She carefully glanced at Huo Xiuxiu, as if seeing the tears that had not yet dried up at the corners of her eyes. So, the smile at the corner of the eye grew even stronger. Someone said, did my younger sister get scolded by my grandmother? Did she even get punished and confined? I also heard people say. Is it because of our aunt who disappeared for many years? I don't know which bastard in the family reported it. The woman cursed out loud as she spoke, as if she was really defending Huo Xiuxiu. Who filed a complaint? Isn't someone clear yet? Huo Xiuxiu spoke coldly. The affairs of the Huo family are very complicated. Although now it appears to be her grandmother Huo Xiangu's one word. Her nominal successor is also her. But privately, each family has been engaged in internal strife. Brothers, sisters, uncles, aunts and so on, there are also many who refuse to obey her. After all, Huo Xiangu is old, and no one knows which day she will suddenly die. Everyone wants to sit in the position of the first person in the Huo family. And the woman in front of me is the one who dances the most happily. Oh, don't you think I did it, sister? After listening to Huo Xiuxiu's words, the woman let out a soft cry and covered her chest with a sad expression. Sister, you misunderstood me, sister. But Huo Xiuxiu remained indifferent and instead went straight to the theme. Tell me, what are you doing here? Seeing this, the woman stopped beating around the bush and smiled slightly. My younger sister is really delightful. She pondered and spoke. I see that my younger sister has always been concerned about her aunt's whereabouts, and over the years, she has had no intention of inheriting it. Sister, I also see it in my eyes and feel the pain in my heart. So, I've come up with a win-win solution for my sister here. That's right, sister. You voluntarily withdraw and completely transfer the inheritance rights to me. And then, sister, after I became the leader of the Huo family, I went all out to find my aunt's whereabouts for my sister. Of course, these things can only be done after grandma returns home for 100 years. Do you think sister's idea is good, sister? The woman looked steadily at Huo Xiuxiu, her gaze filled with anticipation. However, Huo Xiuxiu has not responded yet. The Zhang Ye inside her body was a bit unbearable. Perhaps it's because she shares the same body with Huo Xiuxiu. It feels like the other party's words seem to be speaking to him. I empathize with you. This woman is really disgusting. On the surface, the younger sister may seem older than the younger sister, but what she says and does doesn't look like a sister at all. What is active withdrawal and relinquishing inheritance rights? What does it mean to wait for Huo Xiangu to return home for 100 years before helping Huo Xiuxiu find Huo Ling? If Huo Xiangu really dies, after Huo Xiuxiu becomes the ruler of the Huo family, won't she look for it on her own? Zhang Ye is getting angrier the more he listens. Sister, do you think your sister's proposal is okay? The woman leaned forward sideways and asked again with anticipation. Is that okay? Nima. Zhang Ye couldn't help but wait for Huo Xiuxiu to react without saying a word. He raised his hand and fiercely slapped the malicious woman in front of him. The more you play, the more rewards you get. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Pop. The crisp and abnormal sound of applause echoed through the entire side hall. Zhang Ye's palm was extremely heavy. Almost visible to the naked eye, the other person's left face turned red and swollen. Seeing this crazy scene, Huo Xiuxiu couldn't help but stare big. This person, isn't it too crazy? Without saying a word, just slap someone's mouth when you get started. Yes. It's really crazy. Even the woman in the qipao who was beaten was stunned for a moment. She stared blankly at Huo Xiuxiu in front of her. Is this still her sister who is usually good at speaking? How did it become so fierce? Is it vulgar? The woman's gaze was filled with a strong sense of disbelief. But then an endless anger surged into the chest. Huo Xiuxiu, how dare you hit me? I'm your sister. As soon as Zhang Ye finished speaking, the familiar prompt sound of the system rang in his mind. Shock value plus 10 from Huo Youxue. Shock value plus 10 from Huo Youxue. Is this the way to obtain shock points? Zhang Ye raised her eyebrows. Seemingly, is this value a bit small? And Huo Youxue's shock value? So, is the woman in front of me who is sharp and sarcastic without any sister-like appearance the legendary Huo Youxue? At the moment of hearing this name, Zhang Ye couldn't help but feel it. So it's this woman. The boss of Jinshangzhu in the Sand Sea. After the death of Huo Xiangu, Huo Xiuxiu's rights in the Huo family have been elevated. But what left the deepest impression on Zhang Ye was still the other party, Qi Shenmei from the Qi family, and the person in charge of the Li family, all three of whom had been sneaking around in bed together. Pooh! She truly deserves to be a bad woman. Now Zhang Ye has even less psychological burden and can directly confront. It's you who labor and management hit. How could there be a sister like you? Even if you don't want to love your sister on weekdays, you can still try your best to set up traps, all kinds of strange things. I'll ask you one question. Are you particularly worthy of being my sister? Ah. As he spoke, Zhang Ye's temper rose. I couldn't help but raise my hand, with two loud mouths popping up again. Feeling the burning pain on her face and looking at the familiar and unfamiliar sister in front of her, Huo Youxue suddenly forgot how to deal with it. Crazy. Crazy. I'm afraid you, a woman, have lost your heart and gone crazy. Shock value plus 10 from Huo Youxue. Shock value plus 10 from Huo Youxue. In my mind, the system beeps one after another. Zhang Ye's heart moved. It seems that the more you fight, the more shocked you will be. And this good thing. Subconsciously, Zhang Ye raised his hand and wanted to slap the other person again. However, Huo Youxue clearly had some foresight. Seeing the situation was not good, she quickly crawled out of the room. Before leaving, I didn't forget to put down my harsh words. Huo Xiuxiu, I remember this matter today. You wait for me. Wait. Damn it. Labor and management won't get used to you. If you have the ability, just go ahead and do it. Without saying a word, Zhang Ye wanted to control Huo Xiuxiu's body to pursue that woman. But the next second, I was shocked to find that I couldn't move no matter how hard I tried. Immediately after, Huo Xiuxiu's soft and sticky voice came. Forget it, after all, she's my cousin. You're making such a fuss. It's not good. Humph. Zhang Ye let out a soft snort, feeling a bit resentful that iron cannot turn into steel. You're such a kind woman, no wonder you've been bullied. If it were just an observer, it would have been fine. Anyway, it's not Zhang Ye who is being bullied by the other party. But now, due to the shared body, I can directly empathize with it. I can't bear it anymore. At the thought of the ugly face of the woman just now, Zhang Ye felt a bit angry and couldn't help but speak. Tisk, Huo Xiuxiu, if I were you, I would have already turned this woman back and forth several times. Puff. Huo Xiuxiu couldn't help but laugh at the words. I can see it. What kind of swelling did my cousin's face get from your beating? Don't say it yet. Just now, when Zhang Ye took control of his body and went to hit his cousin, he was quite relieved. At least this feeling is unprecedented before. If it were her own, how could she dare to do that? Not to mention slapping people's mouths, even cursing can be a serious concern. By the way, what's the name of your lazy cousin? Why are you so despicable? Zhang Ye pretended not to know and asked. Her name is Huo Youxue. Huo Xiuxiu spoke word by word. Huo Youxue. The name sounds quite nice, it's just a person. Hee hee. What's that, Huo Xiuxiu? You have to be careful, you so-called cousin. Don't be swallowed or peeled off by life in the future without knowing it. Out of kindness, Zhang Ye also kindly reminded me. I know. Huo Xiuxiu murmured softly. Actually, I have always been very clear about some of the things that the other party has done, both openly and secretly, over the years. It's just for the sake of the Huo family's inheritance rights. It's just. I didn't have the heart to argue about my aunt's situation before. But that doesn't mean I'm afraid of her or them. Huo Xiuxiu said word by word. Now. Zhang Ye shrugged. Now. Huo Xiuxiu gave a faint smile. Of course you took me to find my aunt. For the sake of long dreams, Huo Xiuxiu didn't even go back to her boudoir. Before her grandmother's ban was passed down, she successfully escaped from the Huo mansion. As soon as Zhang Ye boarded the taxi heading to the airport, a series of system prompts rang in his mind. Shock value plus 10 from Huo Xiangu. Shock value plus 10 from Huo Xiangu. Shock value plus 20 from Huo Xiangu. Shock value plus 10 from housekeeper Huo. Shock value plus 10 from Huo Youxue. Shock value plus 10 from Huo Qifu. Shock value plus 10 from the Huo family's subordinates. Shock value plus 10 from the Huo family's subordinates. The sound of prompts sounded like firecrackers in Zhang Ye's mind one after another. This made him a bit confused. Mrs. Huo, or rather the entire Huo family, it seems that shocked and a bit ruthless. Is 7 not big or small? You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the courtyard of the Huo family, in the antique study. Huo Xiangu, with silver hair all over her head, was holding a string of small leaf purple sandalwood Buddha beads and standing quietly in front of a golden Buddha statue. Sandalwood fragrance lingers. She closed her eyes slightly and murmured the low and inaudible Buddhist scriptures in her mouth. Over and over again. Doo-doo, a slight knocking sound came from outside the study. It seemed to be afraid of disturbing the people inside, and the sound was extremely light, and it only knocked once before stopping. After a while, I lightly tapped again. Huo Xiangu inside has already noticed. But she didn't immediately pay attention. Instead, he earnestly recited the Buddhist scriptures in his mouth one by one. Then he respectfully gave a Buddha salute to the person in front of him. After finishing these, she slowly spoke up. "Come in." "Ji." The wooden door hummed softly, and then an old woman with gray hair walked in. "This is the old butler of the Huo family. Since childhood, I have been by Huo Xiangu's side and have gained her trust." After entering the study, she skillfully boiled water and brewed tea, and then handed a cup to Huo Xiangu's hand. "Madam, have some tea." Huo Xiangu nodded at the words, took the celadone tea cup with her right hand, and took a small sip lightly. "This is the best Longjing before the rain. The entrance is slightly bitter, and then sweet." Immediately, a faint tea aroma spread in the mouth. Huo Xiangu took a few sips and glanced at the old butler in front of her before speaking softly. "Tell me, how's the situation going?" The old butler respectfully spoke up. "After you trained Miss Xiuxiu, Miss Youxue couldn't wait to return to the side hall. Then it was mentioned that Miss Xiuxiu should give up participating in the inheritance of the Huo family." Huo Xiangu let out a soft nod, as if she was not particularly surprised by this matter. As the head of the Huo family, she naturally knows very well about this internal conflict. However, Huo Xiangu didn't care much. Instead, they hold an attitude of tacit approval. Because the Huo family is not a single Huo family, but rather a whole composed of hundreds or even thousands of Huo family members. Only through various enemies and challenges from both inside and outside can a qualified successor of the Huo family be cultivated. In this way, the Huo family can survive and prosper for a long time. Of course, among so many heirs, she also has her own preference. That's Huo Xiuxiu. This girl not only looks very much like her when she was young. Even that nimbleness is the same. However, the only thing that displeased Huo Xiangu was that her granddaughter placed too much emphasis on family affection. Being too soft and kind towards one's peers. But isn't this one of the reasons why I love this girl so much? Thinking of this, Huo Xiangu also sighed lightly in her heart. By the way, how did Xiuxiu deal with this? Again. Is it still the same as before, just being patient? Almost without the old butler speaking, Huo Xiangu could already guess her granddaughter's reaction. Because in the past, when encountering such things, it was always that girl who suffered losses. Even here, Huo Xiangu feels a bit resentful that iron cannot be turned into steel. Just this time, the butler did not speak up for a long time, but instead his face became strange. "This. Madam, perhaps you guessed wrong this time." Immediately, the butler gradually told Huo Xiangu what had happened in the side hall. "Are you saying Xiuxiu not only didn't tolerate it this time? On the contrary, he spoke rudely. Even slapped Youxue hard." Upon hearing this, Huo Xiangu's expression became somewhat strange. Is this still the little girl in her impression who treats her fellow race with a soft and kind heart? "Yes, ma'am." It seems like something interesting came to mind, and the old butler also pursed his lips and chuckled. "Miss, that look is quite like your fiery spirit back then." "Nonsense, I wasn't as fierce as her back then. I dared to slap my cousin's mouth. It's getting bigger and smaller." Huo Xiangu was dissatisfied and spoke up. The faint smile at the corner of her mouth exposed her true thoughts. "Obviously, I am extremely pleased with Huo Xiuxiu's change. By the way, madam, Miss Youxue is still waiting outside the courtyard. Why don't you call her in?" The old butler continued to speak. "What are you calling her for?" "Come in and file a complaint." "Humph." Huo Xiangu spoke lightly. "Since you want to become the heir of the Huo family, you need to be prepared to endure various hardships and challenges. Xiuxiu, I am not biased, and I naturally won't care if there is snow. With that ability, fight back on your own. The old butler couldn't help but chuckle upon hearing these words. Madam, you know. Although Miss Xiuxiu doesn't have much strength in other aspects, in terms of skills, she is one of the best in our Huo family. Good skills are also the result of Xiuxiu's hard work and training, there's nothing to say about it. With a word of approval, Huo Xiangu exposed the matter and continued to ask. Is there anything else besides this? Have the old butler nodded seriously and his expression became more serious. Before Miss Youxue entered the side hall, Miss Xiuxiu seemed to be talking to herself. Occasionally, there were suppressed screams of surprise coming in. At that time, I didn't hear anything clearly because I wanted to avoid Miss Youxue and stay far away. Soliloquize, are there any suppressed screams? Upon hearing this, Huo Xiangu couldn't help but furrow her brow deeply. Huo Xiangu is confused. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Madam, Miss Xiuxiu also had similar symptoms in the middle of the night yesterday. It seems like I was sleepwalking. The old butler spoke up in a timely manner. I'm afraid it's not because of Miss Ling's situation that she's exhausted. Sigh. Upon hearing these words, Huo Xiangu also let out a long sigh. This girl is too stubborn. Tell her not to get involved. She must get involved. This character is exactly the same as Linger. As she spoke, Huo Xiangu couldn't help but shift her gaze to the incense table in the Buddhist niche. There is a black and white photo displayed. The person in the photo is a young girl with a bright smile. A faint shadow of Huo Xiangu could be seen between her eyebrows and eyes. This person is Huo Ling. For so many years, she has been insisting on fasting and chanting Buddha. For what reason? Do you still hope to see your daughter safely return home one day? Just difficult. Back then, she almost used all the strength of the Huo family to search, but she didn't notice any trace of Huo Ling. It's so weird. She quickly realized that this matter was not simple. Behind the disappearance of my daughter, there must be a colossal presence. So she decisively gave up searching on the surface back then. And the fact also proves that she is right. Through years of covert investigation, even the slightest trace has been found. However, this single clue left her feeling horrified. Because that little clue involved a mysterious family. The legendary Zhang family. You should know that this is just a subtle clue floating on the surface. Who knows how deep the water is in here? So, over the years, she has been strictly prohibiting people from the Huo family from investigating what happened back then. To prevent the entire Huo family from being destroyed by this. As Huo Xiangu's confidant, the old butler naturally knew about this matter. At this moment, seeing Huo Xiangu frowning and furrowing, she couldn't help but speak. Madam, why don't we just tell Miss Xiuxiu about these things? No way. We can't let her get involved any further. Huo Xiangu shook her head. Anning is my daughter, and as a mother, I have an obligation to search for her. But this cannot affect the entire Huo family. Xiuxiu is going to become the heir of the Huo family in the future. If she were like me, wouldn't our Huo family always be trapped in it and unable to extricate themselves? This is not what I want to see. Although the Huo family has not been greatly affected yet. Perhaps it's also because the huge power behind the scenes doesn't care much about the Huo family. But some things are not afraid of 10,000, just be afraid of the unexpected. Huo Xiangu shook her head and sighed lightly. I hope to have an understanding of this matter after my death. It's best if I can find Linger, but if I can't find her. When I die, I won't find her either. The old butler has a complex complexion. But madam, have you ever thought about it? Miss Linger is also Miss Xiuxiu's aunt. They used to have a very close relationship. I think Miss Xiuxiu is definitely not willing to give up easily. Even if you don't want to give up, you have to give up. Huo Xiangu spoke forcefully. For the future of the entire Huo family, she must make some choices. Just afraid of Miss Xiuxiu's stubborn temper. The old butler was worried and spoke up. Grinding. No matter how stubborn your temper is, you have to smooth it out for me. I don't believe she can still escape from my palm, can't she? Huo Xiangu resounded loudly. Obviously, he is extremely confident in his own means. It's just that she just finished speaking. A hurried sound of footsteps echoed outside the study. Immediately after, a servant rushed in panic, ignoring even the usual etiquette. Old lady, it's not good. Miss Xiuxiu forcibly ran away from home. Run away from home. Huo Xiangu was stunned and speechless for a long time. After a while, a thunderous sound came from the study. Chase. Even if I tie myself up today, I want to catch that bastard girl back. For a moment, the entire Huo family jumped up and down chasing. It's definitely impossible to catch up with Huo Xiuxiu. Because the latter has already made sufficient preparations in advance, and now it has even flown to Golmud. As soon as he got off the airport, Huo Xiuxiu stopped a taxi without stopping. Head straight to Golmud Sanatorium several tens of kilometers away. 9 hands fighting each other. Shocked by middle-aged drivers. You are listening at novel full.audio. On a bumpy car. The middle-aged driver held the steering wheel, paying attention to the road conditions ahead, but couldn't help but occasionally look up in the rearview mirror. No, it's just because the passengers he's carrying today are really weird. I have been writing on a blank drawing board since I got on the car. Originally, there wasn't much to be curious about. Society is so big, with a mix of good and bad, and people of all kinds. Over the years as a driver, he has occasionally encountered passengers with quirky personalities. Perhaps, what kind of artist is this girl addicted to painting? The middle-aged driver thought of it. But soon, he realized he was wrong. Because he saw the beautiful little girl take out 2 pens from her backpack with his own eyes. 1 hand, 1 branch. And then let's start writing our own. Yes. Write your own. The middle-aged driver is very certain. Although I can't see what the other person specifically wrote. But he could see clearly that the trajectory of the girl's 2 hands on the drawing board was different. He lived for most of his life. It's the first time I've seen such a rare thing. Isn't this a scene that only appears in martial arts novels? Ding, shock value +10 from passers-by drivers. After careful observation, the driver finally couldn't help but speak up. What's that, little girl? Oh no, Vexia, are you practicing the old mischievous child's mutual dexterity? Female Xia. The hand-to-hand combat technique of an old mischievous child. Upon hearing the sound, Huo Xiuxiu was momentarily stunned. She instinctively looked up and saw the silly expression on the middle-aged driver's face. Smart as she immediately guessed that she had been misunderstood. Just now, the reason why she wrote with both hands at the same time was entirely because she had to communicate with Zhang Ye in writing. Discussing her aunt's affairs. As for why there was no conscious communication, it was because Huo Xiuxiu felt uncomfortable and panicked. Yes, it's awkward. That feeling, Huo Xiuxiu felt like she was a schizophrenic. And Zhang Ye is another personality of hers. It's not a big deal in short communication situations. Over time, Huo Xiuxiu felt that she might have some kind of personality disorder. So, unless necessary, she discussed with Zhang Ye and chose to communicate through other means. And now, due to the presence of outsiders. It's also inconvenient for you to have a self-dialogue with me one by one. That's why we adopted the method of brush communication. However, it seems that it's still a bit shocking. Really, how could a normal person communicate by writing with both hands like her? That's why she and Zhang Ye are like this, because they share bodies. Thinking of this, Huo Xiuxiu couldn't help but burst out laughing. Uncle, I don't know any hand-to-hand combat skills, let alone any heroines. Why don't you drive well? Understood. I understand. The middle-aged driver blinked. High-achieving individuals like you usually value being low-key, right? Huo Xiuxiu smiled and shook her head, and now she was too lazy to explain. Because on the blank drawing board, Zhang Ye was using her other hand to write a paragraph. Golmud Sanatorium may be a bit dangerous, you need to be prepared. Huo Xiuxiu's face also became serious upon seeing this. I know, as long as I can find my aunt I'm not afraid of any danger. Seeing this, Zhang Ye also sighed lightly in his heart. In fact, he still had one more sentence to say to Huo Xiuxiu. That is. The so-called danger stems from her good aunt. Huo Ling. If nothing unexpected happens, the latter has now become a terrifying forbidden woman. Not to mention Huo Xiuxiu, it's probably her mother, Huo Xiangu, who probably wouldn't even recognize the assassin if she came. I don't know what expression this girl will have when she finds out. Zhang Yi sighed in his heart. In thought, the taxi also quickly arrived at the destination of this trip. Golmud Sanatorium. Perhaps it is because it has been abandoned for a long time. As soon as I got off the car, the feeling of dilapidation and desolation in the nursing home rushed towards me. Huo Xiuxiu instinctively frowned. Will my aunt be here in this place? Everyone has come, can't you just turn around and leave? Zhang Yi whispered and smiled. Yes, everyone has come. Huo Xiuxiu took a deep breath and was about to enter. But at this moment, Zhang Yi spoke coldly. Wait, before that. We have one more thing to do. What are you doing? Of course, it's doing what's necessary. As soon as he finished speaking, he saw that Zhang Yi had already controlled his body and turned around, then walked straight towards the taxi. Huo Xiuxiu was stunned for a moment, feeling a bit lost. Next I saw Zhang Yi controlling her body and sneaking back into the back seat of the taxi. Hey, little lady, why did you come back again? Is there any martial arts secret script left on the car? The driver noticed Zhang Ye's actions and opened his mouth with a smile. Zhang Yi also smiled slightly. Without saying a word, a hand knife hit the neck of the middle-aged driver. Pup, the latter tilted his body and fainted on the spot. Shock value +20 from passers-by drivers. Watching Zhang Yi skillfully pull out the rope, Huo Xiuxiu widened her eyes. No, what are you doing? Can't you see it? I'm tying him up. Zhang Yi naturally spoke up. But. Why? Where did this driver uncle provoke you? That's not true, I just don't want to walk back later. The location of the sanatorium is too remote, with no village in front or shops behind, and there are hardly any taxis passing by. A distance of tens of kilometers. That must be exhausting to death. Actually. Huo Xiuxiu said weakly. We can just tell the driver directly, at most we can add a little more money. Can you guarantee it? Zhang Yi asked directly in reverse. As soon as these words were spoken, Huo Xiuxiu immediately stopped speaking. She is not foolish and sweet, she naturally understands what Zhang Yi means. This middle-aged driver is just a stranger to them. Trust or promise is just a weak joke. It seems that we can only wait until the matter is over and give this uncle more compensation. Huo Xiuxiu silently pulled out the car key and put it into her pocket. And then silently turning back, I walked to the front door of the sanatorium. At close-range observation, this place appears even more desolate. Decayed and dilapidated iron gates, wild weeds growing, and dilapidated buildings not far away. Everything indicates one thing. This place is already deserted. Such a place, will my aunt really be here? Huo Xiuxiu had doubts in her heart. However, just like what Zhang Yi said. Everyone has come, can't we just turn around and leave? There must be something to see. With this thought in mind, Huo Xiuxiu took a deep breath and suddenly pushed open the decaying iron door in front of her. 10 Golmud Sanatorium. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Through the dense deep grass in the courtyard. Huo Xiuxiu arrived at the main entrance of the sanatorium. Under close observation, one can better feel the desolation of this house. At first glance, it was covered in thick dust. Not to mention people, there are not even any footprints on the ground. "Auntie, are you here?" "I'm Xiuxiu." Huo Xiuxiu tentatively shouted. However, in the vast area, apart from her echo, there was no other sound. After waiting for a while, Huo Xiuxiu couldn't help but frown slightly. "Mr. Zhang Ye. My aunt. Will she really be here?" "In theory, if her aunt is really here. Should you respond to the sound?" "Everyone has come, can you go back now?" Zhang Ye shrugged his shoulders. "Yes, everyone has come." Huo Xiuxiu whispered, looked up at the building in front of her, and without hesitation, walked in. And Zhang Ye, taking advantage of his free time, also shifted his attention to the system panel. To be precise, it is in the shock value column. He received his first shock value from the Huo family before. Although the value brought by each person is not significant, the victory lies in the number of people. So, at this moment, his shock value is also around 500. These 500 knights are not intended to be preserved. To be precise, he had no intention of preserving the shock value he had gained in the early stages. Because the shock value of 100,000 is too far from the target. It cannot be achieved in a short period of time. And most importantly, one must have strong personal strength. As long as he possesses more skills, he will also gain more shock points in the future. This is considered a necessary upfront investment. So, what can 500 experience points do now? Zhang Ye was in the background of Huo Xiuxiu's body and opened the system store in his mind. Immediately, a large number of transparent information boxes appeared. There are many things. There are daily necessities, food and drink, and even pots and pans having skills, such as kueishing, kicking and fighting, double finger probing, moving mountains and filling the sea. There are items such as hair mound seal, gold touch talisman, small god blade, black gold ancient sword, engineering shovel. There are various spiritual fruit pills that can enhance personal attribute points and even blood level. These things are so diverse that they almost dazzled Zhang Ye's eyes. The bad news is, most of these things are gray. That is to say, his shock value is not enough, he can't even exchange it. After thinking about it, Zhang Ye set the range at 500 shock points or below, related to skill abilities. This time, there are much fewer things that have appeared, and most of them are basic things. For example, basic knowledge of tomb raiding, identification, fighting, mathematics, physics. Fundamentals of mathematics. Fundamentals of physics. What kind of ghost is this? Zhang Ye automatically eliminates these messy things. Now there are only 5 left. Basic knowledge of tomb raiding, identification, ancient martial arts, fighting, firearms, and attribute points. Yes, attribute points. 500 shock points can purchase 10 attributes. Equivalent to 1/10 of a normal adult's foundation. This price is quite suitable. However, Zhang Ye's body had already undergone the baptism of the Phoenix bloodline before. All aspects of their attributes are already 3 times that of a normal person. So, he doesn't need to improve in this area in the short term. As for the basic knowledge of tomb raiding, identification, and firearms, these 3 are also very important. But compared to the basics of ancient martial arts, the priority is still slightly lower. In terms of physical condition, Zhang Ye has far surpassed the average person. What is lacking now is the technical aspect. Because if you have power but don't know how to effectively use it, you won't be able to exert too much power. So, without hesitation, Zhang Ye bought the Foundation of Ancient Martial Arts Combat. Ding, the Foundation of Ancient Martial Arts Combat has been purchased. Do you want to choose fusion? Zhang Ye chooses to confirm. Immediately, he felt a huge flow of information pouring into his mind. Little by little, Zhang Ye also mastered various basic knowledge about ancient martial arts. And various power techniques, even some precious combat experience against enemies. It seems like a long time has passed, and then it seems like only a few seconds have passed. When Zhang Ye regained his senses again, he felt that he was already different. I don't know how effective this ancient martial arts foundation really is, Zhang Ye pondered in his heart, wanting to find a chance to give it a try. Consciousness returns and looks towards the outside world. However, everything in front of him left him somewhat stunned. Inside the abandoned sanatorium building, Huo Xiuxiu was running with long legs. From the leftmost side of the first floor to the rightmost side. From the bottom floor of the building to the highest floor. She searched almost every sanatorium room inside and outside. Breathing, at this moment, Huo Xiuxiu was standing at the entrance of the 5th floor staircase, panting heavily and her face turning red. Zhang Ye looked at it in a daze. No, what are you doing? Running exercise. Running exercise. Upon hearing this, Huo Xiuxiu couldn't help but roll her eyes. Didn't you see this sanatorium so big? If you want to find someone, you must search from top to bottom, from left to right, in sequence. What if I make a mistake or miss something? Search the entire building in sequence. Zhang Ye remained silent for a long time, and then Yu mouth. Well. Actually. I know where the entrance is.